Most of us are drawn to things we've never seen before. The unknown pushes us to look closer, question more, and uncover what's been hidden. That same curiosity drives archaeologists and scientists just as much as anyone else. But sometimes, no matter how deep they dig or how hard they search, some discoveries refuse to give clear answers. And here in this video, we're going to show you some of the most unbelievable ancient finds you've probably never heard of. So, are you ready? Well, let's dive in. Number 15. The Ancient Archaeoastronomical Complex. In Peru, the Chanquillo continues to puzzle archaeologists because it seems to be doing more than one thing at once. Some believe it was one of the oldest observatories in the world. Others think it functioned as an early solar calendar. The truth might be that it served both purposes at the same time. The most striking feature of the site is its line of 13 towers, but the structures at either end may be even more important. Researchers now believe those endpoints acted as observation platforms. By standing on one of them and watching how the sun lined up with the tops of the towers, it would have been possible to track both the time of day and the changing seasons. That kind of precision is remarkable, especially for a site dating back around 2,300 years. What makes Chanquillo even more fascinating is that it does not appear to have been only ceremonial. Evidence suggests people lived and worked there, and there may even have been a fort on the site. The civilization that built it came before the Inca, and we do not even know their name. Number 14. The Demon Wall of Telemark. For decades, the so-called Demon Wall inside a church in Telemark, Norway, drew attention for all the wrong reasons. The wall was covered in thousands of strange faces, distorted and scary, unlike anything typically found in religious spaces. When it was first revealed in the 1940s, even experts were confused. And we mean, how can they not be? The figures looked ancient, almost like something hidden beneath layers of time, and no one could explain why they were there. That mystery lasted for years, until the truth finally came out. The wall wasn't ancient at all. It had been altered by a restorer working on the site. During the process, he took older religious artwork and reshaped it, exaggerating the features into something darker and more dramatic. In doing so, he destroyed original paintings that had been there for centuries. What makes it harder to process is that he never explained why. The work passed as authentic for years, which says something about how easily perception can shift when context is missing. Number 13. Golden Elephant Automaton. There's something almost wild about this golden elephant automaton built in 18th century Europe. It wasn't created out of necessity. It was made to impress. Commissioned in London in 1768, the piece was crafted by Hubert Martinet and a team of skilled artisans, combining bronze, jewels, and intricate mechanical parts into a single moving figure. The elephant itself is richly decorated, designed to reflect wealth and taste more than function. Objects like this often served a purpose beyond decoration. They were diplomatic tools, gifts exchanged between powerful figures to smooth over negotiations or strengthen alliances. In this case, pieces like the elephant were sometimes sent to India, where European trading companies were trying to establish influence. It wasn't just about beauty, it was about presence, the ability to present something rare, complex, and unforgettable. Today, it sits quietly in a collection, removed from that original purpose. But even now, it still carries that sense of intention behind its creation. Number 12. Surtscheller Cave Stone Boat. The Vikings had a habit of shaping the world around them in ways that reflected what mattered most to them. Boats were central to their lives, so it makes sense that they built boat-shaped burial mounds and ceremonial spaces. But in Surtscheller Cave in Iceland, they may have created something even stranger. A stone boat tied to fear of the end of the world. Archaeological proof suggests this structure was built around 1,000 years ago. Around it, Researchers found glass beads and decorative items from places as distant as the Middle East, which says a lot about how far Viking trade and raiding networks reached. The cave itself was formed after a massive volcanic eruption in the 9th century, not long after Norse settlers arrived in Iceland. That eruption must have looked terrifying. To people raised on stories of Ragnarok, with its fire, destruction, and chaos, the sight of a violent volcano could easily have felt like prophecy coming to life. That is why many believe the rituals carried out around this stone boat were meant to stop disasters. Number 11. Tabula Cortinensis. This is one of the longest surviving inscriptions written in the Etruscan language, and yet it still leaves more questions than answers. Discovered in Italy in the 90s, the bronze tablet was found broken into several pieces, with at least one section still missing. Its discovery was surrounded by uncertainty from the start, which delayed its official recognition. Once confirmed as real, it became clear that the text recorded some kind of legal agreement, likely involving land, property, or inheritance. Certain words have been translated, enough to suggest references to vineyards and territory, but not enough to fully understand the document. That's the problem with Etruscan. It's partially understood, but not completely. You can catch fragments of meaning without grasping the full context. And the tablet feels close to being readable, almost within reach, but not quite there. It stands in that frustrating space where the past is visible, but still just out of focus. Number 10. Externstein. Externstein in Germany has always drawn the wrong kind of fascination. There are weird rock pillars that rise out of the landscape, carved, reshaped, and surrounded by centuries of myths and speculation. Today, two very different groups show up regularly: modern neo-pagans and, unfortunately, neo-Nazis. That alone tells you how loaded this place has become. Even the name is totally unclear. Some translate it as star stones, and others as stones of the egg. So nobody agrees. What archaeologists do agree on is that people have been coming here for a very long time. Activity stretches back to the Paleolithic era. Over time, and the site was carved with stairways, chambers, and reliefs, many of which were likely added later by Christian monks in the 8th century. The Nazi connection comes from Heinrich Himmler, who tried to claim it as a sacred Germanic site. There's no evidence for that. Still, the myth stuck. Strip all that away, and you're left with something far older, an ancient ritual space that keeps pulling people in. Number 9. Edwin Smith Papyrus. Among all the medical texts that have survived from ancient Egypt, the Edwin Smith Papyrus stands apart for one simple reason. It doesn't rely on superstition as its foundation. Dating back about 3,600 years, the document contains detailed observations on injuries, treatments, and surgical procedures that feel surprisingly methodical. It describes how to handle broken bones, how to treat wounds, and even how to approach conditions like tumors. What stands out is the structure. Each case is presented with a clear sequence: examination, diagnosis, and treatment. That kind of approach feels closer to modern medicine than anything else from the same period. It doesn't completely avoid spiritual elements. There are references to rituals and remedies that fall outside logic, but they appear as secondary options, almost like a last resort. The key focus stays grounded in physical observation. It challenges the idea that early medicine was purely mystical and shows that, even then, some were thinking in a far more practical way. Number 8. Labyrinth of Buda Castle. Beneath Castle Hill in Budapest is a maze of caves that feels more like a story than a place. Known today as part of the Panopticum, these tunnels once carried a darker reputation. Long before tourists wandered through them, they held prisoners, one of them being Vlad the Impaler. History remembers him as the figure who inspired Dracula. Between 1463 and 1477, he was held captive inside this underground labyrinth. Walking those tunnels now, it's hard not to think about what that must have been like. years spent in darkness with no clear escape. The caves themselves are far older than that chapter. They were formed by natural processes and used by humans for hundreds of thousands of years. Tools left behind by Homo erectus suggest activity dating back roughly 350,000 years. Today, visitors can explore the space, but there's no guide or map. In the darkest sections, a simple pipe guides the way. Lose it, and the place quickly becomes disorienting. Well, and it's easy to see how someone could get trapped. Number 7. Moctezuma's headdress. Few artifacts carry as much debate as the feathered headdress often linked to the Aztec ruler Moctezuma II. It's an incredible piece, made from vibrant quetzal feathers arranged with gold detailing, now kept in a museum in Vienna. The problem is, no one can prove it actually belonged to him. For years, it has been labeled as a royal headdress, but some researchers argue it may have served a completely different purpose. Similar objects shown in historical depictions appear to be worn on the back rather than the head, possibly as ceremonial standards instead of personal attire. There's also a political layer to the mystery. Mexico has long expressed interest in having the artifact returned, but experts say it's too fragile to transport safely. So it remains where it is, disconnected from the culture that created it. Whether it ever rested on Moctezuma's head or not, the object still carries symbolic weight. It represents power, identity, and a history that hasn't been fully pieced back together. All right now, let's head over to number 6. The Pinwheel Cave. Mystery. Deep inside a cave in California, there's a strange red symbol painted onto the ceiling that puzzled researchers for years. It looks like a simple pinwheel at first glance, but the meaning behind it runs much deeper. Dating back around 400 years, the artwork was created by Native Americans, and recent studies suggest it wasn't just decoration. Evidence found inside the cave points toward the use of a powerful hallucinogenic plant called datura. Remains of the plant were discovered packed into cracks in the rock, likely chewed and consumed by those who entered the space. The painting itself may represent the plant, placed there to intensify the experience of those using it. This wasn't casual behavior. It was likely part of a ritual, possibly done in groups, where people sought visions and insight. The cave wasn't just a shelter or a canvas. It was an ancient place where perception shifted and reality wasn't always trusted. Number 5. Phrygian Valley Cart Tracks. Scattered across Turkey's Phrygian Valley are deep grooves carved into solid rock. At first sight, they look like old cart tracks. That would make sense, until you realize how deep they are and how old they might be. Some of these grooves cut nearly 3 feet into the ground. They run for miles, spaced evenly, almost as if something heavy rolled through repeatedly. And the problem is the timeline. If these tracks are truly as old as some researchers suggest, they would date back millions of years, long before humans or even wheeled vehicles existed. That leaves 2 possibilities, and neither feels comfortable. Either the dating is completely wrong, or something created these marks that doesn't fit into our current understanding. It's hard to dismiss them as natural formations because of how precise they are. They look intentional. And when something looks intentional but doesn't fit history, people start reaching for explanations that go far beyond archaeology. Number 4. Gishi Shield. Some artifacts don't leave much room for mystery, at least not in terms of who made them. This shield is one of those rare cases where we know the exact craftsman behind it. Giorgio Ghisi, an Italian master engraver, signed and dated this piece in 1554. That alone sets it apart. The shield itself is made from a single hammered sheet of steel, but its surface is layered with gold and silver detailing so intricate it almost feels excessive. It wasn't designed for combat. No one would take something like this into battle. It was meant to be seen, displayed, admired. Probably commissioned by someone wealthy enough to treat art as a statement of power. Gysi created it during his time in the Netherlands, which adds another layer to its journey. Beyond that, the trail becomes less clear. We know it passed through private collections before ending up in a museum, but the original owner remains unknown. The object survived. The person behind it didn't. Number 3. The Barbagal Water Mills. Hidden near the French city of Arles is a site that doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. Known as the Barbagal Water Mills, this ancient Roman complex once stood as one of the most advanced industrial setups of its time. Built around the 2nd century, the system consisted of 16 water wheels arranged in 2 parallel lines, cascading down a hillside. Water flowed from one level to the next, powering each wheel in sequence. It wasn't just clever design, it was efficient. At full capacity, the mills could produce enough flour daily to feed thousands of people. That level of output suggests it wasn't a small local operation. It was something much larger, possibly supplying an entire region. What's striking is how organized and deliberate the construction was. This wasn't trial and error. It was planned. Even today, the remains give a sense of scale that feels modern, hinting at a level of engineering that doesn't always get enough credit. Number 2. Dura Europos route map. Among the many finds at the ancient site of Dura Europos, one stands out for its simplicity and importance. It's a fragment of a map, drawn not on paper or stone, but on the leather covering of a Roman shield. Created by a soldier in the 3rd century, it's considered the oldest surviving road map of its kind in its original form. The drawing shows a series of locations connected by distances, likely representing a route taken during a military march. The coastline is clearly marked, separating land from water, with place names written alongside measured intervals. It's not artistic, it's practical. That's what makes it so valuable. It shows how information was recorded in real time, not as a formal document, but as something useful for movement and planning. The fact that it survived at all feels unlikely. Leather doesn't usually last that long, but in this case, it preserved a moment, a soldier mapping his world as he moved through it. Number 1. Pompeii's garum sauce. Pompeii has a way of freezing moments in time. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, it buried the city so suddenly that everyday life was preserved beneath layers of ash. Among the ruins, archaeologists continue to find small details that bring that world back into focus. One of those details is something surprisingly familiar: food. In 2019, traces of a popular Roman sauce called garum were discovered inside ancient containers. It wasn't just identified, it was recreated, made from fermented fish. Herbs like coriander and rosemary and sometimes vinegar or pepper, garum was used in almost every meal. Rich or poor, it didn't matter. It was a staple. Some spread it on bread, others used it to flavor meat. It's often compared to ketchup today, not because it tastes the same, but because of how widely it was used. A small discovery like this says a lot about daily life, habits, and taste. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for being with us till the end, and we'll see you very soon.